Call the meeting to order. I want to recognize that we are on the unceded traditional territory of the Upper Snoqualmie Indian Band. A motion to adopt the agenda. First, I have to do a. Oh, we just changed that. Motion. Just adopt the agenda. Councillor Willis, seconder. Councillor McLean, thank you. Any additions or errors? The minutes of the October 18th, 2021 meeting.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
I'll second.
Any errors or omissions? All in favor? Carried, thank you. October 25th, minutes for the special meeting of council. Councilor McLean, seconder. Councilor Willis, errors or omissions? All in favor? Carried, thank you. Down to unfinished business staff reports. The 2022 schedule of regular meeting of council. Is that you, Carrie?
Sure. So this is just an annual thing we do every year. We have council approve the schedule for the meetings for the next year. And then as per the charter, we advertise it in the newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks. Some of the things that are, most of our meetings are the first and third Monday of the month, but we're proposing that there only be 1 meeting in January. We'll cancel the first meeting, 1 meeting in July and August for the summer months, and the only other change is the November meeting being the inaugural meeting of council.
Next one is 6.2, office closure for the Christmas week. It'll be the office and the visitor center for the December 29th, 30th, 31st. In addition to the already scheduled statutory holidays of the 27th, 28th, and January 3rd with no pay to staff.
I'll make the motion as amended. Uh, 6.3, the fire hall roof replacement. We have a.
Thank you, Mayor. The quotes that we were submitted came over the allotted amount that we had been given, and the proposal is to increase that amount to allow for the process to take place.
Okay. Any questions? Councillor Gould?
When do they anticipate being able to do it?
As soon as weather permits.
So this year?
This year.
Perfect.
Councillor Elliott?
Yeah, I noticed there was just one quote submitted. Is this normal for this kind of job?
Yeah, it was difficult this year to find submissions, and that was the only quote we received.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We have a recommendation of council award the contract to replace the roof for the Princeton Volunteer Fire Hall at 162 Second Street. The all-purpose roofing for the amount of $67,670 plus GST, and the mayor and chief administrative officer be authorized to sign the agreement on behalf of us.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Sir Elliott, seconder. Councilor McLean. Questions? Councilor McLean.
We were only going to get one quote, just as well, that it's one from Princeton.
From
Yeah,
Princeton?
local, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I'm just glad that he was able to put us in with everything else going on.
It was close.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 6.4, fire hall exhaust system. Ed.
I'm sorry, Mayor. Please remind me of the yeah. It just left me. There was a change, but I forgot.
You're so good on the first one, Ed.
I'll let James take that. Oh, sorry, you can have the mic back.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, on request of the fire chief, Rob Banks, he submitted a quote for the exhaust system for the fire hall. The current exhaust system they have is substandard and no longer meets current requirements for running vehicles inside. The system will suffice. It's actually it's an individual system, so each fire truck will have their own dedicated hose that will exhaust to the outside. There's almost no infiltration into the inside of the building, so it's a much safer system what they have now. Unfortunately, due to it's very highly specialized equipment they have, so we only got one quote on it. There's really one supplier of this in the province. And it did go $11,000 over budget. It was budgeted at 50. It's proposed for 61. We propose, similar to the fire hall, that we will break $11,000 into an operational cost, probably for the disposal of the old equipment, and then the remainder will fit within our capital budget. So we're asking council to approve this contract in accordance with purchasing policy.
Any questions?
Make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Willis, seconder.
A second.
Councillor Gould. Any questions on the motion? All,
We only got one quote again, but this one wasn't because
Apparently it's the only guys that do it.
we had to suffer it.
all in favor? Carried.
Thank you. Brings us down to council reports. Council Willis.
I attended the special meeting of council, and then I gotta say, I went to the fireworks display, and it was quite the show, I thought, and the turnout, I thought there was, I don't know if it was more than last year or not, but it sure seemed like it was good, and, yeah, the show went on and on. It was, I think most people were pretty impressed with it.
Oh, nothing further than that.
Councillor Elliott.
Well, you know, I always have a list. I attended a strategic planning session with Mayor Coyne at the Princeton Museum. And did you find that format interesting? Because it wasn't a SWOT analysis. They actually focused on the positives, which was really an interesting approach. And I think it helped a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot different.
Yeah, very different approach. Attended strategic planning sessions for town. Went to a PXA meeting Tuesday at the Legion Hall. And also attended the fireworks display, my first time of actually not looking at it from my yard, and really enjoyed it. And like Councillor Willis says, an impressive turnout up at the airport and the high school surrounding area. It was quite a show. Good seat everywhere.
Thank you. Councilor McLean.
Nothing to report other than I had a report from the fire. The mic's not on. Oh, sorry. Nothing to report except for the fact that I had a report from the fireworks display. And I guess there was a little pause in the middle, and some people got up and started to leave, and we're driving down by the Brown Bridge and looked up, and it was coming again. So I think it was a lot longer than they thought it was going to be. So anyway, it sounded like it was a great
And the
time.
posse got a win. He didn't knock in trouble.
How are we doing on billets, though? Are we still good on billet values?
We're right there.
Yeah.
I still think we need one or two. If we're all right for the players we have, but if we intend to bring in one or two more with what we're allowed, we would need one or two more. But I have to thank the town. They've come through. I think I've said it before, but they've come through in a big way, and we're right there. So
Good to hear. Let's see. I got a couple things to report on. The 26th, I had the grade 6 and 7s come into town hall. We split them on two groups, sent one over to the museum while the other one was in here, and then we switched them around. And they always surprise me with their insights. They love, we took them into Gary's office. I take them to all the offices and they get to see what everybody does. And I took them into Gary's office and they were just raving about how the town looks and how they're proud of it, and that was really neat. We had some comments like we need a bigger skateboard park, we need more parks. They still want a pool, Tim Hortons, of course. Somebody asked for a mall. They were all excited about the jail cell. They all fought over the jail cell. It was a good group. I love having them here, and I love listening to their comments because they always surprise you. They always throw something at you that you never thought before, and they pay way more attention to what's going on around us than I think they get credit for. So kudos to them. Today I had a 2-hour Zoom meeting with the Ministry of Forest, FLNRO, on the modernizing the forest policy. This is something that the government is undertaking. There's a lot of different aspects on it, from the ALR end of it to the forestry end of it and everything in between. So we are focusing today mostly on some of the changes. So stumpage for one, and one of the things that's going to affect us directly is stumpage on the community forest licenses. They are looking to bring, well, they're looking for input, but they've got a mandate that they need to bring it into line with everybody else. So right now we're at a set stumpage rate, which is nice and low, so that we can create revenues off of the size of license we have. The pressures are coming from outside of our borders to bring those, they call them, what is it, table licenses, into compliance with the market-driven ones. And that all, of course, revolves around softwood lumber disputes and everything. So the province is looking at changing the way our stumpage works for our community forests, and that's going to most likely jack our stumpage up in a big way and make it harder for us to do business. I voiced my concerns very strongly about that, and I've asked them to, and I think they're considering it, that they need to get a hold of all of the community forest license holders and have a meeting with just those communities separate from everything else, and have consultation with us, because the whole idea of those licenses wasn't a revenue maker for the province, it was a revenue maker for municipalities so that we could fund things. And to take that away would change that relationship, as far as I'm concerned, with the municipalities and the community forest concept. So I am hopeful that that'll happen. The president of the UBCM reached out to me, and I think we're going to have a regional meeting with SILGA members to try to talk about this on a regional level. Not just that, but all the changes that are coming, because there's some municipalities that want more control over what happens in the bush, and then there's communities like ours that are, more resource-based, and we have a different set of opinions. So I think there's a lot of work to be done still. There's some really good stuff coming out of it, but I think there's some stuff that we have to keep our eye on and really pay attention to. So when I hear more, I'll pass that on to you guys. And this is kind of a preliminary thing. Tomorrow we're meeting with Modi and AIM and representatives of the regional district and public works, and to talk about the roads in our area and snow removal and whatnot. So we'll report back to you guys once we how that meeting goes. But they reached out to us, and they wanted to have this meeting with us. So it's a positive thing. Any questions?
Is there, was any discussion in terms of going back to a community forest that fine raise the stumpage on the community forest, but find another way to reimburse those entities for, because if I read what you're talking about the fact that with the softwood lumber agreement, they're very aware, the states are very aware of what we charge for stumpage. So if we're given a break, then they're screaming like whatever. So in essence, in a way, could we just raise the stumpage but reimburse those
Well,
community?
that's kind of what I made the point of, you know, because when we got this last license, I think you guys actually signed the papers on that. The previous council I was on was the ones that kind of got that ball rolling, and that was because we were all asking for a percentage of the stumpage as a, you know, kickback to the municipalities where those monies were coming from. And so the province at the time, their idea was we'll give out more community forest licenses. And we were successful, and the Lower Valley was successful, and we got two licenses within our valley. And that was kind of the way that they were going to work around giving us percentage of stumpage, right? You guys go make your own money, and you do with it however you want. So they're very careful to use the word subsidy.
Sorry?
The province is really, they tiptoe around the word subsidy,
Okay.
because if it comes up, then they have all the legal right to go after us. And I guess that's what the Americans are seeing, is the stumpage rate for these license holders are subsidies. So I made it clear that we're not too keen on this idea, and if that's the case, then we need to re-examine how stumpage is distributed in this province. Because I'm not into the idea of taxpayers funding a business that can't make a profit, and all that money just goes to the province. So we'll see where it goes. They were pretty, there wasn't a lot on it. They don't have anything solid to give us at this point, so I'm hoping we can get ahead of it and kind of get something going. So I've already reached out to the chair of SILGA and the president of UBCM after that meeting, and to try to organize a meeting so we can at least regionally get something happening, because we're the ones that are going to get hit pretty hard with any changes that are coming down in the interior. So
Are you aware of how many forest licenses, community forest licenses there are?
they didn't have those numbers, but I can probably.
Well, yeah, I was just curious.
Community forest license. Okay. We'll move on to the next one, correspondence received and filed. We have two letters, one letter from Minister Eby, and regarding our meeting at UBCM, and the other one was overview changes to Bill 26, which allows some changes to the community charter to allow for development and waiving of some requirements and whatnot. So we just have a recommendation to receive and file.
So moved.
Second that was one.
Questions? All in favor? Carried, thank you. 10.1, shipping container.
I will excuse myself.
Don't go far. Uh, 10.1, shipping container zoning text amendment bylaw number 10/10/2021, carry.
This is the final step of the process. Council's already given 3 readings. MOT is signed off on the bylaw, and we are just looking for the adoption of the zoning amendment for shipping
Okay.
containers.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilor McLean. Seconder. Questions?
All in favor? Carried, thank you.
Somebody grab Councilor Gould for us.
to council procedure amendment bylaw number 1016/2021, Carrie?
This is a change to our council procedure bylaw. The wording in it is outdated as far as inaugural meetings. So it currently reads that it must be, the inaugural meeting must be held on the first Monday in December. The community charter says it has to be held within the first 10 days of November. So it's just a simple removal and adding the new wording to the procedure bylaw.
Questions? Motion?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott.
Second.
Councillor Gould. Questions on the motion? All in favor? Carried, thank you. 10.3, revenue anticipation bylaw. James?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is an updating of the last year's revenue anticipation borrowing with the new value for previous year's taxes and updated dates.
Thank you. Questions? Motion?
Make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Willis, seconder. Councillor Gould. Questions on the motion? All in favor? Carried, thank you. 10.4, temporary borrowing bylaw. James?
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. So the temporary borrowing bylaw is in place to allow us to act on our loan authorization bylaw number 1003, which is the $7 million loan authorization to begin the water and sewer works downtown. Because we've had some works already preliminarily with the well, we've had some exploration of the wells and some engineering work that has taken place already. We are starting to incur some expenses. So we require a temporary borrowing bylaw to be able to access short-term funds to be able to fund this project as is written in our financial plan. Short-term rates right now are very low through the Municipal Finance Authority. We're about 0.93%. And at any time, as structured in this bylaw, we can take the short-term borrowing and ladder it into debentures through the regional district. So they can be converted from short-term to long-term at any time.
You mentioned at the beginning that this had to do with the $7 million access to. There's no way, this would normally be covered just under our ability to borrow. It seems to me that we have, the municipality has, you know, I've got to be careful with what kind of funds, excess funds. And yet, it seems as if we don't want to access them, or we are unable to access them. And I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, that it's a crime that we can't take advantage of things that come up that we will be able to pay back in a certain amount of time to access those funds that are kind of sitting there in terms of we're holding them for this or that project or whatever.
So, so this bylaw only enables the municipality to be able to access the funds by borrowing. There's no need to actually go out and do that. Typically, we pass a resolution authorization draws from reserves, and this is typically done November, December. So we'll be approaching pretty quickly to ask council's authorization to use reserve funds for the current year. And at that time, if we want to take the expenses that have incurred, and we can take them out of reserves or take them out of the temporary borrowing as council sees fit. The reason we have to pass a bylaw, the loan authorization gets us permission to borrow period. This bylaw allows us to use a municipal finance authority if council so desires.
Okay,
But there's no requirement to use this bylaw. We can use reserve funds as well.
it seemed to me as if there were hoops we had to go through in order to borrow money from our reserves to use it for a project. Am I missing the
We
boat?
would have to pass a bylaw to that effect as well. If we were gonna borrow
That
from,
doesn't have
if
to
we're,
go-
if we were going to borrow from a reserve that was not water-oriented. For example, if we borrowed from the Future Amenity Fund, or we borrowed from the Arena Reserve, or we borrowed from any other reserve other than something that was for water purposes, we would have to pass a bylaw for that. If we use a water reserve, it can be done simply through resolution.
Would the pool fund count?
That would have to be done through bylaw.
So the mechanics of passing a bylaw doesn't sound as if it's all that involved. We don't have to get permission from anyone or from.
That's right. Yeah, the permission came with the loan authorization bylaw, which has already been passed. And all the hoops have been jumped through at the provincial level.
But again, you're talking about the 7 million.
Yes, this is part of that 7 million.
Okay, and I'm trying to talk about reserves.
We still have to pass we still have to pass a bylaw
You'd
to
still
borrow
have to,
from the reserves.
you'd have to pass a bylaw to remove them from a non-water reserve, or a resolution to pass them
And it-
from a water reserve.
And it's simply a bylaw that council can pass.
Correct.
Okay,
And we still have to pay it back.
That's right.
Same interest.
thank you.
Any further questions or comments?
I'll make that motion.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And that brings us to adjournment.
I'll make that motion. I was,
I'll second that.
All in favor? Opposed?
Did you do anything
Good night.
tonight?